Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Many people were caught by surprise when the CCP announced a potential major easing of its rigid zero-case restrictions yesterday. What are the new policies? How has its tight control for the past 3 years affected China and the Chinese people? And how will things develop from now on? Today, I'd like to talk about these issues. Yesterday, that's December 7th, the CCP announced the so-called 10 new measures regarding the prevention and control of the pandemic. The 10 new measures include, number 1, more precise decision of risk areas. Number 2, to further optimize PCR testing. Number 3, to optimize and adjust the quarantine method. Number 4, for high-risk areas, if there are no more new cases in 5 days, the lockdown should be lifted in a timely manner. Number 5, ensure the basic needs of the public to purchase drugs. Pharmacies should maintain normal operations and should not arbitrarily shut down. The public should not be restricted from buying non-prescription drugs. Number 6, accelerate the vaccination for the elderly. Number 7, strengthen the management of different types of people, identify those who have diseases, and map the vaccination situation of elderly people. Number 8, ensure the normal functioning of society and basic medical services. Number 9, ensure that pandemic control work is done safely. Blocking fire escapes, unit doors, and residence doors in various ways is strictly prohibited. Number 10, optimize the pandemic prevention in schools and ensure normal offline teaching activities. Supermarkets, cafeterias, sports venues, and libraries on campus should be open normally, etc. I don't know what you think after listening to all this. Although I've been following all the situations in China closely, I'm still shocked by these so-called new measures. As for me, these are the CCP's official admission of how absurd the previous control was. For example, isn't it normal to ensure that the fire escapes are not blocked? Isn't it normal to allow people to buy non-prescription drugs? It sounds almost like saying that firefighters must fight the fires, doctors must treat the patients, etc. All the normal things became some kind of extra favor from the CCP. Anyway, after the new measures were announced, the CCP's mouthpiece Xinhua immediately created a lot of propaganda pieces to promote these measures, as if the CCP had just done another great job with their pandemic control. These are the propaganda pieces that glorify the CCP's new policy. And in the meantime, Xinhua published an editorial titled "Winning the Strategic Initiative in Persistence," a review of China's great battle to prevent and control epidemics in the past 3 years. The editorial basically says that under the leadership of General Secretary Xi and our great party, we've walked through the most difficult times. People's lives and safety are always our party's first priority. We have been improving our ways to deal with the constantly mutating virus, and we try to achieve the best result with the least cost, etc. Now, with the weakening of the pathogenicity of the Omicron virus, the popularity of vaccination, and the accumulation of experiences in prevention and control, China is now facing a new situation and new tasks, etc. So, as expected, the CCP won again. You know I'm joking, right? As a matter of fact, people are saying that this zero-case policy has just become another rotten tail project of Xi Jinping. Rotten tail project mainly refers to those unfinished buildings due to lack of funds. So people say Xi Jinping's 3-year zero-case policy has become a rotten tail project as it failed to achieve its goal. Not only a rotten tail project, but it has also brought at least 9 very bad consequences in China. Consequences 1. Secondary humanitarian disasters. We all know that the widespread A4 revolution or black paper revolution in China was triggered by the tragedy in Urumqi. At least 44 people were burned to death in a fire because of the inhumane lockdown. Not long ago, on September 18th, 27 people were killed when they were forcefully taken to a quarantine site by a bus. In order to cover up the fact that people were taken away, the authorities in Guizhou City transferred them in the middle of the night. The bus rolled over at 2:40 a.m. in the morning. The driver must have been too tired or have fallen asleep while driving. There were countless other cases of people either being directly or indirectly killed by the inhumane control. If all the cases were connected and published, the world would be really shocked. Consequences 2. The health insurance system is running out of money. We all know that mass tests have been conducted on a daily basis in many cases. These tests were mostly covered by the health insurance system, which everybody must join and contribute money. So in this sense, it is still the people who are paying the bills. And where do the money go? To the companies that offer test services. And who owns those companies? A while ago, people found a woman called Zhang Shanshan owns and partly owns as many as 35 testing companies. And her father, Zhang Hezi, controls as many as 89 testing companies, and Zhang Hezi's grandfather, Zhang Yuyun, was no other than the commander of the CCP's nuclear test base. So some people even say that Zhang Shanshan is the sister of Xi Jinping's brother Xi Yuanping's wife, Zhang Lanlan. Of course, we have no way to verify these allegations right now, but it isn't hard to imagine that the people who own those companies must have connections with CCP officials. With corruption so rampant in China, how could such a profitable business not be controlled by CCP's own white gloves? Consequences 3. Local government finances exhausted. Apart from the medical insurance system, local governments are also running out of resources after 3 years of endless testing and lockdowns. Apart from that, billions of dollars have been spent on building those quarantine camps, recruiting those so-called big whites, etc. Yesterday, I shared 2 videos of big whites also starting to defend their rights. One video shows a group of big whites sitting on top of a building. This is a common method that vulnerable people in China use to defend their rights, such as demanding their employers to pay them the salaries that they are entitled to. Another video shows dozens of big whites protesting on the street. Their banner says, "We want job, we need food." Obviously, the CCP doesn't have enough money to pay these people now. Consequences 4. Economic losses. In May this year, Xu Jianguo, a professor at Peking University, said that the economic losses in 2022 caused by the pandemic will be as high as 18 trillion yuan, or nearly 2.6 trillion US dollars. It was also reported that Chinese manufacturing orders fell 40% in November, and ocean freight rates for cargo shipped from Asia to the US West Coast fell as much as 90%. Consequences 5. Massive business bankruptcy. According to Professor Zeng Huang of Tsinghua University, in the first half of this year, 460,000 companies in China closed down, and there were another 3.1 million businesses that canceled their business registrations, which means they were no longer in business. This official report says that in the first 6 months of this year, nearly 6,000 plastic companies were written off, and in April, business liquidation soared more than 23% year-on-year. One interesting figure is out of the 6,000 bankrupt plastic companies, about 4,400 were established this year. This means they were only existed for less than 6 months. Consequences 6. High unemployment rate. We've shared in one of our previous shows that even the official unemployment rate for young people between 16 to 24 years old was high as 20% in July. Please note, this is the official number. What is the real number? Nobody knows, but it must be much, much higher than the released number. Sequence 7. Withdrawal of foreign capital and foreign companies. You must have read a lot of news related to this. The latest example is Apple. Last Saturday, the Wall Street Journal reported Apple was accelerating the expansion of its manufacturing base outside China. Before that, many other big companies have already either moved out of China, closed their shops, or stopped producing in China, such as Chanel, Starbucks, Rolex, etc. Consequence 8. The middle class is running out of China. Not only foreign companies, but also Chinese people themselves are running out of China if they can. I heard many stories of middle-class people selling all their property in China and migrating to other countries. Yesterday, when the so-called new 10 mayors were published, the search for immigration on the Chinese social media platform WeChat jumped more than 100% and reached over 116 million. Isn't that a shocking number? Consequences 9. People's spending power significantly reduced. Several days ago, an unconfirmed rumor was circulated on the internet saying that Xu Jiayin, chairman of Evergrande, had tried to end his life. You know, Xu Jiayin was once the richest man in China, and his real estate empire, Evergrande, was also once the biggest in China. However, since it started to go downhill 2 years ago, nobody could save it. As a matter of fact, in recent months, the CCP has introduced quite a few incentives to stimulate the real estate market. But no matter how exciting those policies are, the market just couldn't be boosted anymore. The fundamental reason is, after 3 years of being messed around with endlessly, the Chinese people had lost their confidence in the future, and nobody was interested in buying a house anymore. So no matter what kind of new policies the CCP introduced, the market just didn't respond anymore. So these are the 9 serious consequences that Xi Jinping's latest rotten tail project brought to China. And what are the 2 challenges China will face going forward? The number 1 challenge is that China's medical system may not be able to handle the situation after the sudden reopen. During the past 3 years, the majority of resources were invested in lockdown-related activities or facilities, such as doing mass testing, building large-scale quarantine camps, and hiring a large number of big whites who helped the CCP to control people. Very few resources were invested in research and development for vaccines and medicine. In order to save its own face, the CCP also refused to import foreign vaccines. Also, because of the strict lockdown, many people have never been exposed to the virus. Under such circumstances, what will happen when the lockdowns are suddenly lifted? We've already seen reports that the outbreak in Beijing is very serious. This report recorded the conversation between a family member of someone who just tested positive and a community pandemic control staff member. According to this conversation, many hospitals in Beijing have been overwhelmed already. At a certain hospital called Luhe Hospital, 200 people were still in line waiting to be admitted, and it was 12 o'clock at night already. So many people were still waiting, and the security guard said you needed to wait for at least 4 hours. Some hospitals refused to admit more patients altogether. You know, there is a saying in China which is 一抓就死,一放就乱 in Chinese. It means as soon as the authorities control something, that thing will be killed. However, as soon as the authorities ease up control, things will be in a mess. You know, the CCP always goes from one extreme to another one, but the underlying logic is the same. It doesn't care about people's lives or well-being whatsoever. As long as it can stay in power, people's suffering and difficulties are nothing to them. Right now, the CCP is asking local medical authorities to stop connecting the case numbers or doing tests. In this way, no matter how serious the situation really is, people will have no idea. This is exactly what happened during the SARS outbreak in 2003. The CCP stimulated that if the outbreak couldn't be controlled somewhere, the local officials would be removed. So many CCP officials just stopped connecting case numbers. That's how SARS was eliminated. The second challenge is, after being hurt so badly, both the Chinese people and the Chinese economy will have problems turning around. Many business owners said even though the lockdowns are lifted, they don't want to reopen as things are not stable yet. As soon as you reopen, you need to hire workers and pay the bills, and you can end up losing money if anything goes wrong. And many other businesses have already gone completely bankrupt, so there's no possibility for them to turn around. Another important fact to notice is the so-called 10 new mayors were released by a working group from the State Council, not by the CCP's Central Committee. The State Council is headed by Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. You know, Li Keqiang was not elected as a member of the CCP's next Central Committee and will retire soon. Xi Jinping himself has not endorsed the 10 new mayors yet. So how will things develop? We will have to wait and see. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, please subscribe to my channel. If you are already subscribed, please like and share my content and check if you are still subscribed. Also, if you could, please go to my website at jenniferzengblog.com, sign up for a membership or make a donation to support my truth-telling efforts. Thank you. See you next time.